she just started kind of talking about how it can actually be a lot harder for executives to find writers of a specific identity. That rejection is protection. I wouldn't have wanted to be in a room with that person. Prolific Black writers have been like, on my side and always looking for opportunities to give me. Randomly called me and was like, hey, what have you been up to? And I was like, nothing really. And he was like, I got this opportunity.
Okay, everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Hollywood Hang. We have Kyra Jones here. She is a Black queer comedy writer. She transplanted from the Windy City and is currently based in Los Angeles. She is an alumna of Northwestern University. Very fancy, everyone. If you don't know, you should know. Where she majored in theater and gender studies with a minor in outrunning the diversity brochure photographers. Her previous television writing credits include Woke on Hulu and Queens on ABC. She also co-created and starred in the award-winning comedy web series The Right Swipe. That is where I was first introduced to you. Her original scripts have won awards from Nashville Film Festival, Chicago International Film Festival, Screencraft, and more. She has developed multiple series with Lionsgate, ABC Signature, Freeform, Sony, and some of her personal heroes, including Rashida Jones, Gabrielle Union, and Elliot Page. Before becoming a screenwriter, Kyra spent many years working as a professional sex educator and social justice advocate at her alma mater, which sounds like a fake job, but it is not. When she's not writing, you can find Kyra crocheting elaborate outfits and toasting marshmallows over the burning patriarchy. Oh, love. Welcome. Thank you.
Thank you for having me and for hyping me up.
I'm very excited.
I feel like there is an art when you are a comedy writer to having a funny bio. And when I read it this morning, I was like, this is how you do a bio for a comedy writer.
Thank you. I feel like any time you can incorporate a tee-hee or a ha-ha somewhere, if you're trying to be a comedy writer, is a good idea. Because there's people who say they're comedy writers and they're just not funny.
That I think is something you've talked about on your Twitter, where it's kind of like that you are also an actor and being able to show up in a room and put on that face and do the show and dance, the song and dance is like such a crucial skill, which I'm very excited to talk about because I took improv classes because I was a very awkward, nervous human.
I didn't know this.
I can't believe that. I can imagine you as an awkward, nervous human.
My boyfriend is with me sometimes when people will like come and be like, oh, I like your TikTok. And I blank face, nothing happens, guys. I'm just like, okay. And he's like, say words to them. Like, say thank you, ask their name, introduce me, like do something. And I'm like, so it's still bad, but I'm better because of the improv class. So I'm somehow less bad than I used to be, which is impressive.
You got to just like package a response, like have one ready to go for when that happens.
It's just always so surprising. Like I'm like, oh, why do you know me? Because I make 10 TikToks a day. You might have just seen my face, unfortunately.
Yeah, no, I mean, I don't have nearly the social media presence that you do, especially not now that I have abandoned Twitter. But
your Twitter was
the dating stories on there, like that was a TV show.
Oh yeah, everybody's told me I need a TV show about my dating stories. I just haven't figured out like the frame for it yet, but it'll come at some point. But when I was on Twitter regularly, people would stop me all the time, especially on the picket line. Like people would be like, "Oh, I follow you on Twitter." Like my friend started playing a game where she was like, "I'm gonna count how many times to you on the picket line and tell you how they know you from Twitter." And one day it was 8 times. So,
but that's like your Twitter was the perfect medium to also show how funny you are, because it was so quippy and so smart and like of the moment that it was just like, damn, like that is what a comedy writer should be doing if they want to get their name out there and show that they are good at this.
Well, thank you. And it wasn't even intentional. I mean, I go through ebbs and flows with social media. I think I'm in a ebb at the moment. So I just can't really figure out what the landscape is anymore. I don't know that I have the stamina for TikTok of just like having to like edit all the videos and post that often. And Twitter was just so easy for me to like fire off a sentence and go. But I don't like what it's turned into. I started getting harassed a lot on there where I didn't before, and I was just like, I don't feel safe here, so I'm just gonna bounce. Yeah, I think I just, I was in Chicago. I started my career from Chicago and was like, all right, I'm not moving to LA anytime soon, especially because when I really started putting effort into my screenwriting, it was during lockdown. So I was like, I can't move. So if I'm going to connect with folks in Hollywood, it's going to have to be online. So again, I wasn't like intentionally tweeting to try to find people to, connect with in the industry, but it just kind of worked out that way. And once I saw that was happening, I was like, okay, I guess I should keep going. Okay.
Yeah. And so when did you start creating? Like, so where did you grow up in Chicago?
So I actually grew up in Maryland. Yeah, I've been kind of all over. So I was born in Maryland, then I moved to actually Los Angeles for the first like 5-ish years of my life, 5-6 years, moved back to Maryland, and then moved to Chicago for school. But I lived in Chicago as long as I lived in Maryland. So I feel like they're both home. And
you like live, when you live in Chicago, when you're like brain is fully function. I'm like, there are places that I lived where I was like, did I live there? Because I didn't do anything on my own. My mom brought me places.
Exactly.
Chicago is very much a life.
I don't remember LA except like going to Disneyland.
Where did you live in LA?
Palos Verdes.
Oh my God.
Nice,
Gorgeous.
yeah.
Kind of falling off of the coast currently, which is unfortunate.
Yeah, I wasn't when we were there, but my father is from Compton, so he grew up here. Yeah.
Oh, nice. Okay, so then you go to Northwestern, which is great. That's like a very sometimes I think people don't realize it's like a very top-notch school, and it's gorgeous.
Now. Yeah, it's beautiful, and they give you shmoney. I don't know, I don't know how it's going right now with Trump taking the federal funding, but I got like they made it rain. I was like, I was already gonna go there because it was the school I got into, but then they were like, I've already paid off my student loans.
Whoa,
wow.
That is amazing. I'm almost done, and I went to the University of Missouri, so not quite the same.
They don't tell you that these like really top tier schools, a lot of them have like amazing financial aid. Like I think some of the Ivies, if your parents make under $100K, you get a full ride.
So one of them just upped it to $200K. If your parents make under $200K, you can get a full ride there, which is like phenomenal. Because $200K is not the same as as $100K used to be. I don't know what's going on with that.
And $200K, if you have 4 kids, like you are probably struggling a little bit.
Right. Yes. Yeah. So you go to Northwestern. Were you always into filmmaking?
Did you take any writing classes? Like,
no. I mean, so Northwestern, I studied theater and gender studies, and my actual minor was psychology, although I did have to dodge the diversity photographers very because this is not an exaggeration. There are more Black people in my house than there were in my graduating class. There were 5 Black people four Black people in a theater class of 100. There's 5 Black people in my house. So they were like, one Black girl.
Yeah.
What did you do? Yeah. So I went for, theater in the mindset that I was going to be an actor. Not to say that I'm not. I'm still in SAG. I still audition every now and then. They keep sending me Tyler Perry, and I'm like, please stop doing that. That's where I'm like a hooker too. I'm like, what is going on? But I had no intentions of being a writer. I was always really good at writing. It was something I just like was naturally good at. Like, for example, I took AP language, which is like the AP writing English class that you can take. And my school was real ghetto, like it was real bad. And my teacher for that class, he just didn't give a fuck. He didn't teach us anything. He literally would just put on The Sandlot and like take a nap at his desk. And he was also our theater teacher. He was whatever. He sucked. I hate him. If you're listening, Eddie Hall, fuck you. But he didn't teach us anything. But I took the AP test anyway with no type of education. I got a 5 on it. I got the highest score you can get.
Oh,
wow.
So I just can do it. And I had to do a lot of writing at Northwestern because the Northwestern theater program is not a conservatory, which means you've got to actually study other things.
Interesting.
Acting conservatories, you're just studying acting. You're not having to take math classes, anything like that. So there's no audition for the Northwestern program. You just have to be smart enough to get into Northwestern.
Interesting.
So I had to take, even within the theater program, a lot of history, literature, criticism classes. So I was writing a lot of essays, gender studies. I was writing a lot of essays. And then, I took a hip hop playwriting class, which was actually really dope. I really enjoyed that class. And then, what led me to, I took one screenwriting class my senior year. And then I took some classes at Second City, but that was it.
I took classes at Second City that was like the sketch writing class that I really actually enjoyed.
Yeah. And my teacher, I remember every time I turned in a sketch, she was like, I have no notes for you. I don't know what to do with you. And I was like, well, I guess I don't need these classes. So I stopped going.
So were you finding like, oh, I guess I could write myself into roles?
That was never quite the impetus for writing. It was more, at the time I was in college, so I graduated, people are going to know how old I am, and I tried to keep that a secret. The time I graduated, there was not a lot of, we didn't have this renaissance of Black television that we had kind of recently with like Atlanta and Insecure and all of that stuff. It was still pretty stereotypical as far as roles went for Black and brown performers. And I was kind of like, I don't like what's going to be available to me when I graduate. I don't like the roles they're putting me in now at Northwestern. And I can't really do anything to fix that as an actor. Like, you can try your best when you're in the role to make choices that could bring more nuance to it. But at the end of the day, you're at the mercy of what the director wants you to do. And so I was like, if I want to be, I got into this career because I wanted to use this, the huge platform of television, film, and theater to be able to help minorities and underrepresented folks feel seen and to change the narratives around those communities. And if I just realized if I really wanted to be a part of doing that, I needed to start writing. So it wasn't so much like, oh, I can write myself something because no one's casting me, which a lot of actors do when they start writing. It was more like, I don't like how none of these roles are being written, including the ones that I would be cast in. So let me start, from the ground up and building these worlds and these stories. When I wrote The Right Swipe, that was the only role I've ever written with me in mind.
Do you think being an actor made you a better writer from the jump?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. You just have to read so many scripts. You're always auditioning and you're seeing what makes a good script, what makes it not good script. I also think as a writer, you're not, especially when you haven't had any of your work produced yet, whether that's, just on an indie scale or whatever, you haven't heard it out loud. And you don't think about the fact that somebody's going to have to say these words and they're going to need to sound like a fucking human being. And so I feel like I already kind of knew to like speak what I'm saying, what I'm writing out loud and see if it works in my mouth, or like even just look on the page and see like that doesn't really seem like a natural thing that somebody would do. I think, and I'm also really, really good with character. That's what I get the most feedback about is like voice and character from in my writing. And I'm like, well, I had to do so much character work as an actor. So it just lends itself to when I'm writing a lot of different characters.
And The Right Swipe, I will explain from my memory, which is pretty bad, but this is how I would play The Right Swipe, Nick, for you. Basically, it was these two female women characters who were bringing men in to fix their dating profiles because they were heinous. And then I think there ends up being kind of like a relation. You're attracted to one of the clients and you're like, oh shit, what do I do? Like, I'm very cute, very modern. Like, that would be a feature rom-com today. So how did that come to be and where did it take you?
You described it exactly correctly. That's actually almost like verbatim how I describe it. The idea came from a few different places. One, speaking of rom-coms, my favorite movie in the history of the world is Hitch.
That is the comp opposite to my Blacklist script. The girls were unhitching relationships. Yes.
Well, you could call it unhitched. But I love that movie. I feel like it's one of the few rom-coms of that era that's aged well, because I think that was kind of the era where they started to get shitty, where they started just like mass producing them and not putting any effort. Like we went from rom-coms being so often Oscar bait, like Moonlighting and When Harry Met Sally and like all those things, like they used to be mwah, quality, and then they just got trash. And so Hitch was like in that era, but it was still good. But anyway, I anytime Hitch comes up, I go on a tangent. So let me
surely they must be trying to make a sequel for Hitch, right?
That is my dream project. I have told so many execs that like I want to, because think about it, in this like current moment that we are in with the like male loneliness epidemic and all of these men getting radicalized to the right and scaring the hoes, like what would a Hitch character be having to deal with in climate and AI and how that's affecting dating, you know, all of this stuff. Like that's just such a rich scenario to be in. And I mean, I'm on team Chris Rock deserves the slap. So like,
so you're like, bring him back in. He's ready to do another round.
Black people still love Will Smith.
Also, he could have like a mentor, like bring in his mentor that he needs to teach.
Yeah.
And the technology, he has the assistant that can teach him the technology things. Like there's just so much to play in there.
I was gonna, in my head, I'm like, oh, he has a company now with multiple coaches.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
But anyway, let me, I keep talking about Hitch, but let's not. But yes, Hitch was a big inspiration for the right swipe, and also just my real life dating experiences of being on these apps and like the men's profiles just being fucking abysmal. I don't tell you anything about them. And what really inspired me was when the few times I would find a male friend on my dating, like somebody who I adore, then I would see their profile and I'm like, what is this? You are such a great guy. You chose the ugliest photos of yourself. I know you have better photos than this. I've seen them. Your profile bio is just like, quote The Office at me, bitch. You have what? So I was just like, in addition to me having to swipe through all these duds, there are probably a lot of guys that I'm swiping left on who are wonderful, but just don't know how to kind of, you know, your field, Tepper, market themselves.
Yes.
And so that's kind of how the idea came to be. And my friend at the time, Julie Delpreet, the co-creator, you know, we both were kind of in this era of our lives where we wanted to pursue indie filmmaking. So we just, you know, sat and put our heads together and wrote these scripts at Kopi Cafe in Andersonville in Chicago. And I was already in several web series at the time. I was in another web series called Seeds, another one called Kappa Force. Web series were just really big in Chicago at the time, especially for filmmakers of marginalized identities. And so I was getting access to those communities and the filmmakers through my acting. And then, you know, when I would meet a cool gaffer, a cool cinematographer or whatever, I'd be like, hey, you know, would you be interested in potentially coming on board for this? And then the funniest connection, though, our director, I had went on a date with him like a year prior from a dating app. Just one date, didn't work out, nothing terrible, just, you know, didn't vibe. And but we had followed each other on Instagram, and hit like a reel from a clip that was a clip of a music video he had just directed had popped up at the time. Julie and I were talking about what we wanted the film to look like, you know, visually, production wise, and his clip popped up and I was like, wait, this is exactly what we were just talking about. Wait, is this guy I went on a date with like a year ago? So I slid in his DMs, was just like, hey, I know I'm just some random girl you like never wanted to see again, but like the script that I'm working on, he was like, okay. And he was just like, oh my God, I love this. Like, please. So it was just like assembling a bunch of like random Avengers from different points in my life career.
And then so you guys make that. It gets it to a ton of festivals, right? And did that like end up producing anything LA Hollywood adjacent for you?
No, I mean, we did some really great festivals. We did Austin Film Festival, and we did Urban World, which is a collaboration between BET and HBO. And that was amazing. I mean, I think more than anything, it just gave me confidence in my writing abilities. Oh, this was my first attempt at indie filmmaking out the gate, and it gets into all these festivals that people try years and years to get into. So I just need to take this seriously. But as far as getting reps or anything like that, not really. I think like there was a lot more attention on me in Chicago, but Hollywood didn't really come knocking at that time yet.
So then what was your move?
My move was to write my first solo pilot, which called Good Vibes Only, which is another comedy that kind of pulls on my time in sex education in academia. So it's set in a PhD program at Northwestern, and it's about this.
Oh, I love this pilot. Yes.
Oh,
I
okay.
love this pilot. Yes. Okay. Sorry.
Tepper's read everything.
Yeah. I'm just.
Oh, incredible. I didn't know you'd read it. But yeah, it's about this woman who she's in the PhD program. She's a lifestyle influencer. She's a Black woman. She seems like she has her whole life together. She's very type A. She has a 10-year plan. And then she gets unexpectedly assigned to do research on the orgasm gap. And you realize she's never had an orgasm, and kind of like her whole life starts falling apart. And she realized, oh my God, I really haven't been doing anything to bring myself pleasure. I've just been trying so hard in this career/life path that I've decided for myself.
That feels very, it's so funny, and it's very I feel like it was Insecure actually meets Dying for Sex that just came out,
which I loved. I loved Dying for Sex. I literally was this is the dark version.
Yeah, I was this is quite dark because she's literally dying. But that, I feel now you have to go back out and be it will be a hit. Look at this.
Elliot Page's company has it. They're direct.
Oh, amazing.
Oh.
Yeah,
that's really cool.
Yeah, we've just been trying to get the right attachments. We were so close to getting Megan Thee Stallion attached to produce, and she's the love of my life. But and they sent it to her reps, and they read it, they loved it. They're like, we're gonna pass this on to Megan. Of course, they passed it on to Megan right before the Tory Lanez trial.
Oh, and you're this is not.
She's never gonna read this.
Yes, you're So when did you write that pilot?
Beginning of 2020.
That is kind of one of those things that I think people don't realize is 2025, and your team is still chugging. Finding the right pieces is not cut and dry.
No.
But when you wrote that, you didn't have a team, right? So
No.
what did you do with the pilot?
Yeah, I submitted it to a lot of competitions because I was still working at Northwestern, but working from home because lockdown, they sent everybody home. And I was I have a lot of free time now, and I'm not going outside and spending money. So I guess I'll use that money for submission fees. And I did very well. I won Best Pilot at Nashville Film Festival. It placed highly in a bunch of other. I'd have to go look at my cover fly to see all the places. Y'all can go look at it. Also, my face is on the cover of the website. Don't be alarmed. Mascot.
It's a great photo.
Thanks. That's Alex McClay. Oh my gosh. I hope I'm not saying. I'm gonna get her name, the photographer, because I will feel bad if I butcher it. But yeah, I had submitted to a bunch of places and gotten some good momentum. And all of these competitions, they kind of sell you, oh yeah, if you do well in this competition, we have so many connections to reps and execs, blah blah blah. And so I was all right, cool. Well, when's the money coming to knock at my door? There was nothing. Not nothing, but very little. And I was I can't. This is not sustainable. I sometimes you look at the cover fly, the people that have the really high scores on the red list, and you look and they have 60 accolades, and I'm you've been submitting this script for years to fucking different competitions and shit, and clearly you're still not repped or anything like that. I was I'm not about to be that person. That's embarrassing to me. So I was I'm going to do one more because it is free. And it was Cover Fly Pitch Week. And if you have not participated or you're not aware of Cover Fly Pitch Week, which I think is no longer, and that makes me very sad to know, but
that makes me sad as well, because I actually did get good meetings from Cover Fly Pitch Week.
Yeah, did Cover Fly just fold or something's happening?
It is maybe in the process of folding.
Yeah, I think something else is about to emerge. I feel they're folding because there's some other plan in place that is eating all of these companies. Of course, I'm going to say I think it's some type of private equity
You heard it here
go.
first.
Yeah, this is my private equity. No, bad, but I do think that's what's happening.
Yeah, I would imagine so. Because, like, I mean, Coverfly was, of all of those similar companies, the most reputable of them.
And, like, honestly, this is, like, so marketing techie of me, a great platform for writers to really showcase all of their work. Like, when you go to your profile, you're like, oh, I can see their wins, I can read their log lines. Like, all you needed, like, but it was so clean, cut, and dry, formulaic, that I thought it was a great tool for starting writers. They have the Coverfly X thing, which is so sad to lose, where writers can give each other script feedback without having to pay. You just like trade between each other. Yeah.
Yeah, Coverfly is amazing. And, I hope that they're not fully folding or they're going to reemerge in some other iteration, because I know so many people who got their reps through Coverfly or got opportunities through Coverfly, myself included. But yeah, so I got chosen for Pitch Week, and I got set up with several meetings, and it's kind of like speed dating, honestly, because all the meetings that they set you up with are like 20 minutes, and they're not really pitches, or at least they weren't in my situation. They were more like mini generals, but they'd already read my scripts. And the amazing thing that set Pitch Week apart from other similar programs where they're like connecting writers who haven't broken in yet to execs, I feel like, and when I did other programs like that, they didn't really put any effort into matching you with an exec that actually would want to work with somebody of your, genre or your identity or whatever. They just like gave you a random person. But for Pitch Week, they're very intentional about it. And it's like, I think the execs read your work first, and then they decide to meet with you. So at the time, my friend, who I'm now house sitting for, she was not my friend at the time. She was just a employee at Coverfly. And she had read Good Vibes Only, and she reached out to me and was like, hey, I'm specifically setting you up with a meeting with Kyra Jones at Cloud9 Productions. She's really looking for work like this. I used to work with her at a different company. She's really great. So she kind of like primed me for that meeting. I meet with Anna, and Cloud9 is the production company on Woke. And so, or one of them. And I meet with Anna, and she's like, I really like you. We need to talk for longer than 20 minutes. So let's extend it. So we end up talking for like 90 minutes. And again, I'm in Chicago. I don't know anything that's going on in Hollywood, at least like not the nitty gritty of it.
And it's COVID, right?
It's COVID, yeah. And I've never been assistant, none of that stuff. So she's kind of giving me the tea about what's happening. And she just started kind of talking about how it can actually be a lot harder for executives to find writers of a specific identity when you're trying to staff a room or find an OWA. Because everyone always assumes like, oh my God, there's so many Black writers. They're just pretending there aren't any. Yeah, but how many of them are good? And that's not to say that the Blackness has anything to do with it. Most writers are bad. So it's like, filter through all of the different things.
And even to what you're saying, like, are they writing exactly what they're looking for? Like, that is... very few times do you find the right producer to the right writer where it's like, we are exactly aligned on what we're trying to make.
Very true. And that's what she was telling me. She was like, she used Woke as an example. She was like, yeah, actually Woke is having a really hard time finding the last writer for their room that's about to start because they really want a queer Black woman and they're not finding one whose voice matches the show. So I am dumb. I'm stupid. And I was like, wow, that sounds really hard. Good luck.
Bye.
I didn't think I could qualify. I don't have reps. And it just sounded from what she was saying that they were meeting with a lot of experienced TV writers and saying no. And so I was just like, I didn't think I could raise my hand. Like, did I have the thought? Yes. But did I act on it? No. But she, Anna Jones, she is smart. So we had exchanged emails. And she emailed me about an hour later and was like, actually, is it okay if I send your script to the showrunner of Woke? And I was like, sure, do whatever you want. I just was so used to sending my script out into the abyss and never hearing back. So I assumed that was what was going to happen. And she actually emailed me the next day, which was a Thursday. She was like, they love your script. They want to meet with you, but it has to be tomorrow, which was a Thursday, I guess she emailed me on Wednesday. I met with them Thursday because she was like, the room starts on Monday. And I was like, okay. So luckily I had already seen the first season of Woke because I actually did, as an actor, a Wingstop commercial with T. Murph, one of the stars.
Oh my God.
That full circle.
Yes, truly. And on set, he was like telling everyone, he's like, yeah, I just shot this Hulu pilot with Lamorne from New Girl. We're like, yeah, okay, T. Murph. But the show came out and I was like, oh, this is what T. Murph was talking about on set. And it's hilarious because in my interview, I had mentioned, I did a Wingstop commercial with T. Murph. And the creators were like, oh, we saw that commercial because T. Murph was going around set. Yeah, he was in a Wingstop commercial and everyone was like, you have a TV show. Like, why are you?
I really love Wingstop. So I would also probably be like, look at what I did, everybody.
Yeah, he's like a side character. Like, I'm the main person in the commercial and he just like is eating a French fry in the corner. But I made a lot of money on that commercial. I made like $20,000. So
wow.
Go Wingstop.
National commercial.
We love Wingstop. Yeah, that's why they're our sponsor.
Yes, that's another sponsor.
Yes, I love another $20,000. Thank you. I go to the interview and I get a call an hour later, and it was funny because I was in the middle of an audition actually. But it was a Zoom audition, so my phone starts ringing, and I'm close with the casting directors at Cargi. No, it wasn't Cargi Ross. It was PR casting, and so I was just like kikiing with the casting director AJ, and I was telling her, I was like, oh, I just had an interview for this show, and she was like, that's amazing. And then my phone starts ringing and interrupting the Zoom, and I was like, oh shit, I think that's the producer. She's like, answer it. I was like, no. Let's finish the audition and then I'll call. And she's like, okay, but you have to tell me what happens. And so I called them back and they're like, yeah, you need to get an entertainment lawyer because we're about to send you your contract.
Whoa.
Because you had no manager, no agent, no lawyer.
Nothing. My uncle, who is a retired public defender, negotiated my contract for me. For a bottle of whiskey.
Oh, great deal.
I got him like really nice, fancy, like $150 Japanese whiskey, but no commission. Yeah.
Whoa. That is to the testament though, that really though, if you have a good enough script, it will find its way.
Yeah. Yes, it will. It will. Just like getting it into the right hands is the hardest part. Mm-hmm. But if you're getting your script into the right hands and people are passing on it, that means you probably need to work on it. Yeah, that was just such a crazy situation. I tell this story all the time in general, and all of the execs will keep, like, I had one yesterday where I told the story and they were like, you know how insane that is, right? That's never happened to anyone in the history of the world. And I was like, I know. But Coverfly, Pitch Week. So, Coverfly, all those sites, they make their money off of people's success stories. That's how they attract new writers. And so they told us during Pitch Week, they're like, let us know if you have a good meeting. Like, send us an email pretty much immediately. And to them, a good meeting is you exchange emails with the exec or they look into their script. And so I emailed them and I was like, yeah, so I got staffed on a show. And they were like, what do you fucking mean? What yourself? And I was like, I don't know what else to say. And so they're like, get on a Zoom with us right now. Like, what? And so I tell them and they're like, this is amazing. Like, oh my God. And they asked to buy reps and I said no. And they're like, okay, we'll try to help you get reps. I tweeted about what happened and then that kind of went viral. And so there were some reps that started actually like sliding in my DMs. I had, and then, Roadmap, Coverfly's competition, they got one of the story and they were like, let us help you. And you can also be on our website. But they got me a lot of meetings, I will say. They got me like 15 and they got me, like big companies like CAA and Echo Lake signed with. So, I have mixed feelings about Roadmap, but if they think, if they believe in you, they'll put you out there. So I can't knock them for that at all. But I ended up at the end of everything having 20 offers from agents and managers.
That is
and
wild.
That was like, wow, were you in the room and then like doing these meetings?
Yeah. And I was still working at Northwestern part-time. It was the worst couple months. I got so stressed that I thought I had cancer, but it turns out I was just so stressed that I made myself so constipated that I thought I had a tumor, but I just couldn't. So
my boyfriend is a hypochondriac. He doesn't know he's a hypochondriac, but like there are times when he's really stressed and he's like, I think that I'm quite sick. I need to go to see a real doctor. And I'm like, you're just stressed and now you're stressing yourself out about being sick and now you're making yourself actually sick. It's a wild cycle that people can actually trick their bodies into.
Stress has really serious impacts on your body. And, I know I wasn't eating well or drinking water or doing any of this stuff because I was just like, go, go, go. Like my day would be, I would start at like 8 a.m. at Northwestern, work there for a couple hours because I was working with survivors of sexual violence and stuff. I couldn't just like leave with 3 days notice. I would work for a couple hours at Northwestern. I would usually go into a rep meeting for an hour, go into my writer's room around like noon Chicago time. During my lunch meeting, go into a meeting with another rep, go back to the writer's room, then go back to Northwestern. And usually have another meeting with the rep. And that was like a month of that.
Which like, I think if everyone's like, oh, that would be my dream, I'd be so happy. It's like, well, until you're actually doing it.
That was the really hard part. I didn't have anybody to like ask for tips because no one had ever gone through this before. People that were like, yeah, I had like 4 offers, but I'm like, that's not 20. So I don't know what to do. And then when I would try to talk to people, they're like, oh, like I wish I had those problems. And I'm like, okay. So I just like couldn't get any real support. I just kind of had to figure out how to navigate it myself. I mean, I definitely had people supporting me as much as they could, but it was just nobody could give me like a 1-for-1 experience of what I was going through.
And so that was agents that you ended up signing with and managers?
So I ended up first with managers and a lawyer. My managers were like, we don't feel like you really need a full team right now. We'll let you know when we think that you should bring on agents. And then I got Queens 2 weeks after I finished Woke. And so they were like, okay, we got to bring on a lawyer to help, close this contract. And there were already, I guess, some lawyers that had reached out to Echo Lake and were like, oh, we've read Kyra's stuff. We think she's amazing. Like, if she needs a lawyer, let us know. And one of them was a Black woman who's no longer on my team because she went to a different law firm, but she's like Rihanna's lawyer now, so she'll be fine. But we reached out and I had already met with Verve at the time and I really liked them, but I just, I told all the agents like, hey, I'm not really gonna have a full team yet, but I'll circle back. And so
You said no to them.
Yeah,
I said no to them. I'll circle back. And I did circle back. And interestingly enough, the other agents that wanted to sign me no longer wanted to sign me. And I was like, I'm the same writer and I now have more experience in a new script. And they were like, no. And so it was only Verve and APA that came back to the table. Of course, the ones with people of color. They're the only ones that came back to the table. And then I signed with Verve. And then maybe 2 weeks after signing with Verve, I sold a show to Freeform. So, but not because of them. but then all of a sudden, CAA got word that I sold a show to Freeform. They're like, hey, is she still available? I was like,
always.
Fuck
always.
You. Yeah, I was like, it'd be one thing if they'd rejected me a year before, but it was a month.
Goldfish memory. They were like, no, we didn't. That didn't happen. We have no idea what you're talking about. So how did you end up, when did you write the show that was the Freeform show?
Yeah, where did you have time to do that?
This is another insane story that's never happened to anyone in the history of the world. So everybody has to take this entire interview with so many grains of salt. So I didn't write it. What happened was my showrunner on Queens, Zaire McGee, who was amazing, he's a genius. He wrote on a bunch of Shondaland shows before getting Queens. He wrote on all of Scandal, everything. And he really loves me. He's one of my mentors, along with Marshall Todd, who was one of the creators of Woke. He also wrote Barbershop. So those two, prolific Black writers have been on my side and always looking for opportunities to give me. And so Zaire, he randomly called me and was like, hey, what have you been up to? And I was like, nothing really. And he was like, I got this opportunity to maybe create a show for Freeform. He had a deal at RIP ABC Signature, which no longer exists. Neither does Freeform really, but he the story is there's a Black executive. She was the VP of drama at the time. Her name is Susan Lewis. And she was watching Yellowstone. And she was like, there's no Black people in this. I don't like that part, but the show was cool. She was like, I want to see Black women on horses. And so she just kind of came up with like half of a log line for an idea. She was like, I want a show about a young Black woman who leaves her life in the city and becomes a cowboy. That's all she had. And she told the idea to Freeform, and they're like, we'll take it. It was like there was no attachments or anything. And Susan apparently tackled Zaire in a parking lot on the studio lot and was like, hey, I have this idea. Me and Freeform want to do this show. Like, can you find a young Black woman to supervise on this? And I guess they had sent him some other options of writers they'd worked with before. And he was like, no, I don't want them. I want Kyra. That's it. And they were like, okay, cool. We'll meet with her. And so he sends them one of my samples. He sets up a meeting, and I was like, "Is this a pitch?" And he was like, "They're saying it's not a pitch. Like they just want to meet you." And I was like, "Okay, cool." So we have this meeting. It's like Freeform and ABC Signature, and it's really just a general. They did kind of ask us to pitch a little bit, and we were prepared. We were like, I don't trust you. But we told them basically nothing. We're like, this is the age of the character. This is just kind of the themes we hope to explore. It was so basic. We finished the meeting, and they did tell me that in my meeting, they're like, your sample is amazing. We've never read a sample that's this good from a writer of your level. And I was like, okay, great. So Zaire calls me, and he's like, hey, they really like you. They're telling me how much they love you. So I think we're good to like actually go ahead and make a real pitch. And I was like, amazing. So I got off the phone with Zaire, and then I get an email from my agents, and it just says, your meeting must have gone really well because ABC Signature just sent over your deal. And I was like, what? What do you mean? I didn't pitch them anything. They're like, I guess they don't care. And
No.
so and so I called Zaire. I was like, I guess we don't really have to pitch because they sent my deal. And he was like, what are you talking about? Like, call me right now. And I was like, he was like, what did your agent say exactly? Like, they said they got my deal. I don't know. And he was like, this is not, I've never heard of this. I've never heard of somebody going into a general and getting a deal hour afterward.
Literally just being like, here you go, have it.
Right. So I didn't write it.
Whoa.
That is crazy. I feel like this is something that hasn't really come up on our podcast before, which is like sometimes ideas or nuggets of ideas for projects like come from the other side. Sometimes somebody hands you an idea and it's not writers, like you still have to break the story and figure out what it is. But that can often be helpful because it's like, it's something they already want and they feel included in the process of like, this is my idea. This is something we literally want to do. And so it kind of, it also happens that way sometimes, you know?
It does, yeah. Sometimes OWAs, sometimes they're IP, but sometimes it is just like a random idea that one of the executives had. And I've had good experiences with that, like with Freeform, where it's very loose. It's like Black Cowgirls. And then I had a not so great experience recently where I quit this OWA in the middle of a notes call. They were doing a lot of really, really disrespectful things. And like during this notes call that I hit my wits end, and I was like, I'm not getting paid for this. And I hate it. I hate everything about this. I'm going to leave. But they had too much. They had already figured out what they wanted the show to be, and I had such a small sandbox to play in, and I was like trying to figure out how to make all the things they wanted work. And then I handed over what I came up with, and they were like, "This is." They literally said we had a strong negative reaction to this, and I was like, "Well, goodbye." Like, so.
Can you?
Oh, you go, Nick.
I was just going to say, can you explain to our listeners what an OWA is?
Yeah. Oh, good point. An open writing assignment. So that is when a studio or a production company has an idea for a show or a movie, whether it's like, again, IP, like a book or an article or a sequel to something, but they don't have a writer for it yet. They have the idea, they don't have the writer. So a lot of the time they will have multiple writers pitch what their take on it would be, or, you know, maybe the OWAs I've gotten most of the time, it's just been, I just met with them and didn't really have to do a full pitch. They were just like, oh, we really like your sample. Like, we like the ideas you're saying in this meeting. Like, we think we can make this work. So it looks a lot in different ways. Cause sometimes it's like a pitch off, like you are going competing with other writers to try to snag this this job. And sometimes they're just like, we'll know the person when we meet them. So
vibes. They're like, oh, if I like your vibe, I think that you'll figure out where we're going with this.
What is the longest time that you think approximately you've spent trying to pitch on an OWA to unpaid to get that job? Just out of curiosity.
I have never pitched on an OWA.
Oh, and then the one that recently you were like, you tried, but then you were like, no.
Yeah. I mean, I had gotten, well, actually, I never accepted the job. That was another thing where I met with them about it. And they were, after the meeting, were like, great, we're so glad to have you on board. And I was like, wait, I never said I was on board. But I'm working on my people-pleasing tendencies that I did. I had a breakthrough about that recently. And I was just like, it would be too awkward for me to say no now.
Oh,
so
yeah.
I just do it. But I had a bad feeling about it the whole time. I was getting disrespected the whole time. And then so at this point, when I quit, it was like I'd already turned in the first version of the pitch, which they wanted me to have ready within a month to take out. Like, not like, oh, have a first draft ready, like have it ready to take out. I was like, absolutely not. I will not be doing that. That's insane.
Right.
But I had got the job with the OWA, but it was just a production company. So we were going to have to be pitching to buyers and stuff. So this was like the pitch to the buyer. I was only on that OWA and it was over the holiday as well, like October through end of January. It was quick before I was like, peace out. I can't do this.
And where are you at with your original specs right now?
Yeah. So like I said, Good Vibes Only is with Elliot Page's production company, Page Boy. The spec that I had with Rashida Jones's company and Lionsgate, unfortunately, did not sell last year because nothing was selling. But that was a very, again, situation that's never happened before. I had written that spec really as just a staffing sample because I was like, my normal sample is so like, it's not crazy raunchy, but it's about sex. So I was like, maybe I'll try to write something a little more commercial. So I wrote a mockumentary about a Black-owned bridal shop on the south side of Chicago. And because I love Say Yes to the Dress. And I, my reps like took it out and it was just like immediate. Like, I think after everything, there was 11 production companies that were all fighting over it. And that was, again, a very overwhelming situation for me. And my reps were like, we've never seen this kind of attention from a TV spec before. Like, this is not what normally happens. And so I had a lot of options. And just, the minute I met with Rashida's company, I knew that was the right fit for me, especially because Rashida came to the meeting.
Oh, wow.
That never happens. The celebrity does not come to, at least not the first meeting. And it was a meeting they set up really quickly because they knew there was a lot of competition. And I was like, they kind of came in at the last second. Because I was about to make my decision. I was like, stop sending it out. I can't, this is too many options. But actually that I kind of got for myself because I had a general with Lionsgate. And, I loved some of the things that Lionsgate had done recently. So they were kind of my dream studio to do that with. And they had read Good Vibes Only. They hadn't read Bow Down to the Gown. And so during the meeting, I was like, hey, I'm actually like taking out this other thing. And none of the pods that we've met with have been Lionsgate, deals. And I'd really like to get Lionsgate in the mix. Like, do you think you would mind taking a look at it? And he was like, sure. Yeah, I'll take a look at it. Takes a look at it, loves it, sends it to Rashida's team. They're like, yes, let's hop on this. And so they were interested. And then there was kind of a little bit of I can't say a full like bidding war or whatever, but like, between like my top choices, they were all kind of going to their studios to see like what kind of deal they could get for me. And Lionsgate just like send a deal. They're like, here, bitch. And I was like, all right.
That's one of those things that I think people don't realize how many steps there are in where you get paid in the process. Like
because if that was a feature, it's like, okay, you get to the studio sends you the deal, like, here you go, feature writer, here's your money. And then in TV, there's this extra whole thing of like, we have to do a deal, but we also have to go to the network.
Yeah. So I never got paid. I got an amazing deal. So what they do is they call it an if-come deal. If the show sells, then the money comes. So the studio will negotiate what your deal would be if they were to if you were to sell it. And I got an amazing deal. Like for a half-hour comedy of somebody of a lower level, I don't think I've ever heard of somebody getting a deal. They were going to pay me $200,000. They were going to give me executive producer credit, sole creator credit, like all this. And so like that would have been amazing, but unfortunately,
they just dangle it.
Yes.
Yeah, the deal closed right before the strike, like literally a couple weeks before the strike.
Oh, whoa. And that is, I think what many people, when they're saying they're in development hell, this is where it starts. So what did that, so then it's the strike. So you can't do anything. So what did it look like once the strike was over?
Yeah. So once the strike was over, all the companies kind of tightened, all the buyers tightened their belts, especially around comedy. They were weirdly very averse to comedy. And like, I know the premise sounds really fluffy, but I always be putting, some political shit into what I'm writing. And so it was a lot about like gentrification, and the pilot starts with these like conservative white people protesting the shop because it caters to Black brides and all of this. So I do think there was maybe a little bit of like, we want to make the feedback I kept getting when they would pass was that it's not broad enough, which they were really using as code for it's too Black. One company said the quiet part out loud because they had said in their mandates that they wanted Black shows. And so when they passed, my exec was like, why did you pass? You wanted Black shows. And they said, oh no, we want Black dramas. We want our comedies to be as broad as possible. So they were just using as code.
They were just like, white people are not going to appreciate this type of humor. And that is a problem to us, which is just like, and that's a good kind of jumping off point where like, this sounds like something that let's survive these next, few years. And this will be a show where everyone's clamoring for it again without you having to change it. Because I think, would you ever there's a thing for writers, like where you're so desperate to make something work that you'll be like, I'll change this to be the thing you guys want.
No, they kind of tried to have me do that in the process, like kind of in the middle of pitching when we were getting that feedback. Like they were kind of, and I get why, because they really wanted it to sell. And so they were kind of like, maybe if you add a white person, I was like, I genuinely considered it, but I was like, it does not make sense for them to be, why would they be here?
Right. It's not Abbott Elementary. It's not where the teachers can come from wherever. Yeah.
Yeah, but I was like, we'd always been pitching it as, there's always going to kind of be a client of the day, like on Say Yes to the Dress, and those clients would be diverse, but everybody that works in the shop is Black. And so it was like, I don't know, there's just too much evidence to show that there are, like, white people do watch Black shows. And like, I don't understand why all of a sudden these executives are ignoring the very real statistics of how well Black content, I hate even using the word, Black film and television does, even in white communities. There's that study that comes out every year that's like Hollywood's literally throwing away billions of dollars
right
Black shows and TV and movies. So I don't know. I guess they hate money.
Sometimes when I see that stat, I'm like, are they just like, is this just blocked on their computer or their email where they don't get these little like statistic quotes? Like, you're just really not listening. Just
not at all. And I think it's just because these like decrepit, 1 foot in the grave, casket ready ass white men are still the ones running these companies. And so we do have a lot of really cool, diverse, younger execs that are like junior execs, but they can't move up because the boomers.
I think the Anchor just did an article where it was like, when are you guys planning to retire? Everyone's a little curious.
They're going to die in their office and that someone's going to find them, like, because they're going to start smelling, and that's what's going to happen. I will not retire. My dad won't retire. He's pushing 70, won't retire. Like, I don't know.
I think they all fear. My dad does the same. He's still working. Although I think my mom is actually a proponent of that because she's like, he can't be in this house with me. Like that will not be a thing.
Also, because my dad's like looking for a new job right now, which I'm like, new job? You're 67. But so he's home right now. He's driving my mom up a wall. So.
My mom is like, no, you will. She's like, I don't really care if you're paying for your own office. You're going to go somewhere every day for 8 hours and like not be here. Wait, Nick, what were you going to ask? I'm sorry.
Oh no, I was just going to ask. In terms of like the landscape of this current moment, especially in television, because before we started recording, you said that you were ultimately positive about like doing this and, you know, the state of things. So can you just talk a little bit about that and kind of like the outlook that you have for people listening?
Yeah, I mean, so I had a chat with one of my agents at Verve. And this is after I had, you know, she right now we're kind of like wrapping up, taking out a new hour-long pilot that I wrote. And I wrote that pilot because no one has been greenlighting comedies. That's starting to change. It's starting to change. But, you know, at the end of last year, beginning of this year, no comedies were being moving forward. So I was like, all right, well, I mean, I have written on a drama already. I just don't have an original drama sample. I will write one to make me a better candidate for staffing. And, you know, it's been getting really, really good reception. And so I was talking with my agent. She was like, there are some people right now who are not going to make it through this period. There are some writers who are not going to make it through this period because they won't pivot. They are just digging their heels in and like, you know, calling me constantly being like, when am I going to get staff? When am I going to get staff? But they're not writing new samples. They're not trying out new genres. They're not doing anything. So she's like, if it was okay for me to say it, I would literally tell them, you need to go find something else to do because you're not going to make it. She was like, you are not one of those writers because you pivot. Like you are willing to try something new and move with what the industry is doing. Like take a look at what's going on, not be a doomer about it, and move in the correct direction.
Well, that's even to say to move genres is a big deal because you do open up an entire new segment of producers you've never met and studio. Like those are whole different meetings to have, which like me and Nick talk about this a lot though. Like you need to have something for your managers and agents to take out. Like they need to re-show you to the town every 6 months. That's impressive. Every year, whatever.
Yeah, I was gonna say every year. So I have some friends who are like, because I've had a ton of generals the last few weeks. Last week I had 5 generals before Wednesday.
That's amazing.
Annoying, but I and my friends have been like, but why am I not getting generals? I'm like, do you have a new script? And they're like, no. And I'm like, what do you mean? So, I mean, I just have kind of always looked at when situations are difficult, what can I do? Like, I can't control what's going on outside, but I can control what I do. And that's writing something new. And so I did that. And I've been getting a lot of breakers. People keep saying, oh, nobody's going to want Black stories. Nobody wants this. I wrote a Black ass pilot and lots of people are interested in it.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. And then I also am optimistic because rooms are opening up. I have 2 staffing meetings this week. Like,
yeah.
Several friends who've been out of work for a few years and just got another staffing job. Like things are actually starting to move in the right direction. So I don't know. I just don't have any evidence that things aren't going to go well.
So pivot, write a new genre, send out a new piece of material. I feel like there's something that also people don't understand is like, it's very easy to say, oh, I spent all this time writing something, I sent it out and it didn't sell. So it's like, that wasn't a success, but like so much of the game is just using sample. Like statistically, most scripts don't sell. The game is using your sample to create a bunch of new opportunities, meet a bunch of new people, and then like use those opportunities to get something else. So it's like, it's all about just, I mean, it's that thing you said of Tepper of like sending out new material, staying, you know, the story you told about how everybody kind of came to you in that moment of like, they had fear of missing out on this like new writer. And then the next month they were like, like Hollywood is so based on everybody has FOMO. And it's like the only way to get somebody's attention is to be like, I have this new thing. You should read it because someone else is going to snatch it, you know?
And even to just repackage, to bring something out a few years, 2 years later and be like, I got a new actor, I got a new director, I got a new spin on this that makes it relevant to right now. Like there is so much timing, I think.
Yes.
I was even last year, I read some phenomenal scripts. I worked on some amazing pitch decks, and I was like, there's no way these don't sell. They did not sell because of how bad the market was. But I'm like, I talked to those writers and they're like, I'm going to go back out. They're like, oh, it's going back out. Like I wouldn't have got such good reception and still gotten no's if it had been a better market year. And it's like, that's the resilience. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's what there was a really bad year last year. Even my friend who writes on Abbott Elementary, she was saying that her showrunners were taking out a show and they couldn't sell it either. Like it was like heavy hitting, like Emmy winning, people not being able to sell their stuff. So of course, lower level folks who don't have much of a name are not really going to be able to make any sales in that climate. So I didn't take, I mean, it was still really heartbreaking to not sell Bow Down to the Gown, but it is something I'm going to take.
That's a great title.
Yes. Oh, I love that. And also that's just a fun world because so many people do love Say Yes to the Dress. Like it's just that is one of those places where I'm like, that's a really good inspiration point. Like, what do you love? Go write it just in your voice, your format.
Exactly. And, I don't think it's a wash at all. I'm like, I know Rashida Jones now. I've heard phone numbers on my phone. I know people that I want to work with, and Rashida, she's so sweet. I got invited to, she has a short film that she and her producing partner, Will McCormick, had directed. It was shortlisted for an Oscar, actually, called Swim Lesson, I believe. I think it's on PBS now. You should watch it. But they had a screening of it at UTA, and they invited me, and I had not met Rashida in person yet. So I meet her in person, and she gives me this huge hug, and then she's like, Kyra, I feel like I failed you. And I was like, what are you talking about? She was like, your pilot is so good, and it should have sold, and it didn't. I was like, that was not your fault at all. Like, it was just such a bad market. And she was like, we're going to find something to work on. Like, we will work together again. And so I'm like, that, I mean, even though, again, I didn't get the result I wanted, I still got a relationship I've always dreamed of having.
That in 2 years and 1 year and 5 years will pay off in a way where you're like, oh, that's why it didn't work out the first time. Like, I think that's very true about all of the general meetings you go on. Like, they aren't going to pay off potentially tomorrow. They're going to pay off in the long run.
Yes, exactly. So you just have to keep rolling. I do think it is important to like mourn the babies that didn't, get birthed all the way. But my stillborn scripts are but because I think, a lot of the time Hollywood just like, okay, well, it didn't sell, keep going. And I'm like, no, take a second and be sad about it. But no, that's not, like, you can take that back out, or you can use that as a sample, or use those connections that you made. Like, it's never a wash completely.
Yeah. And if it gets you staffed in a room, like, that's a whole other experience that is well worth the time and effort.
Yeah. Bow Down was definitely the sample that was used for one of the staffing meetings I have now. So, yeah.
Yes. Oh, that's so exciting.
No, I'm excited. One of them is like my dream room, so we're gonna like cross fingers, but
fingers crossed. That actually just makes me really happy because I had told my boyfriend and a friend when we were in New York, I was like, I actually am very like kind of scared of staffing's already really hard, and I haven't been in a room, and I'm like, I would take a writer's assistant job happily. And one of them like works in a production, and he's like, oh, I didn't know that you would do that. Like, I'll send your resume out. And I was like, this is why I should have been speaking this louder. But it's like, he's like, there's rooms opening again. Like, there will be spots. And I was like, oh, that's amazing to hear that. Like,
100%. And I mean, like, you already been on like the blacklist and stuff. I mean, and the thing is, it is just like a different time right now. People are taking demotions. Upper level writers are taking, mid-lower writer positions. People are going back to being assistants, even though they've staffed before. So it may still be a situation where, even though you are all ready to be staffed on a show, where you may have to take an assisted position. But the amazing thing is, I was just talking to a friend about this who wants to break in, and I was like, you might have to be an assistant. He's like, I really don't want to. And I was like, you might get to co-write an episode. A lot of these I know get to episode.
I'm a very like learn while doing, and so I get a little intimidated of being like, oh, you're gonna sit in this room with all these people who have done this, 2 times, 3 times, 4 times before. And I'm like, if I'm a writer's assistant, I can kind of watch it all and observe.
Yeah, that is one thing. I got thrown into the fire in the woke room. I'd never, ever been an assistant, never even seen the inside of a writer's room. I just had to figure it out as I went along. And I think I was the only person in that room who never been an assistant, maybe like one of two people who had never been an assistant. And so I could tell, like, oh, you all learned so much from being an assistant. And I kind of am a little jealous, even though I think I would be a horrible assistant. It's probably for the best that I did not.
You also never know. Like, you may end up with a showrunner that's just like very, very seriously into the mentorship situation. And it's like somebody could really be like, you know, this is going to be a continuing like partnership.
Yes. Yeah. And like, I know some people who are like, I was the assistant and they gave me an episode. I was the assistant for a year. I got it's really quick how much, if you do a good job for people, like how you can move up and you can just meet people. Working from home I don't see a lot of humans. Yeah, they're not. Yes.
And I have not been in an in-person room, and that was hard, especially because I was so isolated from everybody because I was not even in the same state. Like the end of the woke room, everybody went out for drinks, and I was like, "Can everyone tell me how tall everybody is? I can't go right here." And yeah, there is a lot of opportunities that come from just the connections that you make with people. This is a business of referrals. I think the WGA did a survey a few years ago, and 50% of people did not get their last writing job through their reps. They got it through a referral. So sometimes just a random referral, like somebody asks, you know, their assistant, "Oh, do you know any bald-headed Black women writers?" And they're like,
you're like, actually, yes.
Yeah.
I was just listening to the showrunner talk about Running Point, this new Netflix comedy that's a hit, and they asked him, like, how did you originally make that connection? And he's like, "Oh, I play basketball with this guy." And that turned into us working on this TV show together.
Wow.
Yeah. So you never know.
Sports shows are very in right now. I know nothing about any type of sports. Maybe I need to like...
Wait, it's good that you say that because my gymnastics pilot is out. So let's hope that people like gymnastics.
Yes. That's the only sport anyone's watching during the Olympics.
Okay, this is my my claim to fame is that my sister's best friend is Dr. Marcia Faustin, who took over for Larry Nassar, and she is like the goat badass bitch genius doctor for the Olympic girls team.
I'm glad that they replaced him with somebody good, because I watched the documentary and that was very disturbing. And I my whole job was listening to people's stories of sexual violence, and I would like jaw on the ground with what he was doing. So,
do you miss that job at all?
I do, but I actually have worked a little bit remotely for Northwestern, because you have to be like very, very there's a lot of like qualifications and certificates you have to have in order to do that work. So it's very hard to just get a temp while they're understaffed. So actually, just serendipitously, when the strike started, they reached out to me. They're like, "Hey, would you be open to taking some appointments remotely?" I was like, "I need to, because I shan't be working for like." I worked part-time remotely for doing that job for like a year during the strike. And my episode of Queens was about sexual violence against Black women in the music industry. I have another feature that's about sexual violence. So the work still happens in like I'm also doing has some side hustles, writing some educational or working on consulting on some educational short films about like, you know, sex ed and pregnancy prevention for young people.
So that's amazing.
I've been able to incorporate the world pretty well.
That's amazing. Oh my gosh.
I feel like we should have you on again in the future just to talk more nitty gritty writing, pitching stuff. Next time you come on, you're probably going to have like 3 more shows that you've pushed through.
I love doing a podcast, so I'll come back anytime. But your pitching is, again, because we kind of mentioned the acting stuff and how that has been really helpful with my pitching. And when I was doing the Bow Down pitch, I kept getting feedback from the executives, even like Rashida. They're like, "This is the best pitch I've ever seen." And I was like, "Really?" And they were like, "Yeah, well, a lot of writers are actually really bad at pitching, like really bad." And at the time, I was dating this guy that was a coordinator at a production company. So we had to see a lot of pitches and sometimes read a lot of scripts. And every weekend, I'd be like, "Did you read any good scripts?" He was like, "No, I did not." But like, he was like, I had mentioned, I was like, "Maybe I should teach a pitching class." And he was like, "Please, oh my God, please, because I am so tired of watching these horrible bitches." And I was like, "Is it it's really that bleak? And he was like, yeah, like every executive I've talked to was like, no, most of the pitches we watch more.
Oh, I want to watch your
busy.
pitch.
Yeah.
Sure. I haven't done it in a long time, but I could do it.
Yes. Oh
Yeah,
my God.
sure.
Wait, we'll have to do it. Literally, let's do an episode and we have you hit and we get to watch your pitch.
Yeah, we should do a pitching episode because that's like one of the big questions I get on TikTok is pitching stuff. And it's like, it's a huge topic and it's hard to like, there's so
And
much.
It's also such a personal thing because you have to do, why me? And you're like, I'm about to tell you, so I'm about to trauma dump if it's a drama. And if it's a comedy, I'm about to make my trauma funny.
Yeah.
Listen
much.
to this.
Yes. Yeah, I did actually have actually, no, it wasn't a general. It was one of the companies that wanted to take Bow Down, but they were like, "Oh my God, like you're so funny. Like your joke structure's so good. Like, did you, do Upright Citizens Brigade or something? Like, how'd you get so funny?" I was just like, trauma.
My coping mechanism.
Like,
Yes.
doing fraud. It's a coping mechanism. So yeah, if you can make your trauma funny, you will be very
Yes. Okay, so speaking of trauma, this isn't quite right, but this is my segue into it. We always ask our guests what you get to pick. You will not have to do all three of them. You just have to choose one, but either a high, a low, or just a straight hell no from your time of experiencing this industry.
I feel like I've said a few of those.
A few
yes.
of the highs, yeah.
Yes.
And a few of the low, and having to quit at OWA in the middle of hell no. Yeah, I did. Not everything has been rainbows and sunshine. When I first moved to LA, so I moved to LA in 2022, beginning of 2022. Had been out of the Queen's room for a couple months, was looking for my next opportunity, got an interview for a show, and the showrunner ended up being like really racist and very loud about how she did not like me because I was Black, and ended up having to get investigated by the HR of that very large company for hiring discrimination because of the things she said about me. So,
whoa.
Wow.
Was there actual comeuppance for her?
No, because I think she hired a different Black person in my position, but just one who she thought would be more agreeable, so they couldn't. But the HR folks did, and I wasn't even trying to report her. What happened was, it was really bad, and I was actually warned by somebody that I had worked with before. He called me when he heard that I was interviewing with this woman and was like, "She is very racist."
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, "She seemed great," and then she immediately hate crimed me, but I wasn't even trying to record her, but a couple months after everything happened, the WGA had sent out an email about hiring discrimination. They were like, "Hey, we don't, we can't investigate or adjudicate any of this, but we kind of want to keep track of if people are experiencing this." So there was a special email that you could send just so that they could kind of keep these instances for their records. And so I emailed them. And they immediately, called me and they're like, "This is really bad. We think you should talk to our lawyer." And so I talked to the WJ's lawyer. They're like, "This is really bad. We think you should report her." And I was to the HR and I was kind of like, I had dealt with HR in a different situation. And I knew that you could just make a report, but tell them you didn't want to move forward with an investigation just so they have it on record. And so I tried to do that. And then they were like, "Actually, this is so bad that this rises to the level of federal discrimination. And so we actually have to investigate it." And they said that they, again, she didn't get any time. Her show, actually, she didn't get come up is because they canceled her show before it came out. But
There you go.
they were like, they didn't, there was no legal implications, but they said it was a big investigation and it moved all the way up to the highest levels of the company, which was Disney. That's
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
Whoa.
yes. Yeah.
So it is not always rainbows and butterflies.
And honestly, that rejection is protection. I wouldn't have wanted to be in a room with that person, but I was just like, what? And it really hurt because I was like, I would have been really great for that room and for that opportunity. And if you were racist, you could have just left me alone. Why did you?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. I like that. What did you say? Rejection is
protection. Yeah.
I like that because I think that can be, people take rejection so tough. And sometimes it's like, that's just not the thing for you. Thank God.
Yeah. Yeah, truly. And again, her show didn't even get to come out. So fuck you, bitch.
Got him. Thank you so much for coming and chatting to us.